Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Phil Risher, and on today's episode, we're going to be discussing how to grow your business by creating organic content with Marcus Sheridan. Thanks so much for joining us today, Marcus.
Yeah, Phil, happy to be here. It's going to be a productive day, my friend.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, Marcus is the author of They Ask You Answer and the owner of Impact, which is a sales and marketing training company. I actually read They Ask You Answer when I got into the trades because I knew SEO, but I didn't know what to do with the trades. So, if you could take us back a little bit, you were running a local pool business, I think from 2001. You started out of college. Yeah, take
Yeah,
us back to that.
yeah. Me and two buddies essentially started a swimming pool company in 2001. It was a really small shop, and we struggled to grow it, but we were moving along, and we had aspirations and dreams. And then 2008 hit,
Yeah.
and we thought we were going to lose the business. We really did, and it was during that time that we were struggling so bad that I said, we got to figure out a different way, a better way. So I started reading about anything I could online about how to generate more sales, more leads, etc. So I read these phrases like inbound marketing, content marketing, social media, learned about them, and what I really heard, Phil, was, listen, Marcus, if you just obsess with your customers' questions, worries, concerns, fears, etc., and you're willing to address them online, on your website, on video, etc., you might save your business. So I said, well, if there's one thing I can do, is I listen well, and I can answer those questions online. And so I sat like at my kitchen table one night, and I brainstormed hundreds of questions that people had asked me over years, in my case about pools, fiberglass swimming pools. And one by one, I started answering those. Well, we did on our website, through text, through video, YouTube, etc. And within a couple of years, we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world, and just took off in a lot of ways. And we eventually manufactured our own fiberglass pools. We were getting so much demand, which was crazy. So
Wow.
we went from just like a local installer, almost like, imagine if you're like a Chevrolet dealer and you eventually become like a huge competitor to Chevrolet as a
Yeah.
manufacturer. And that's what we became. And in 2020, I sold the manufacturing, and we became the first franchise of fiberglass pools in the U.S. Sold that as well. I still own the original business, which is essentially what would be considered a franchisee, and that's in Virginia. It does about 150 pools a year, about $16 million in business, so it's a good business.
Yeah.
And and I have that sales marketing coaching company. The Ask You Answer came from me saying, look, this stuff works so well. I didn't realize I had done a lot of innovative things, but I had. And
Yes.
so eventually I was like, I got to write about this. And I just felt like every business owner should know about it. And They Ask You Answer went on to become a very successful book. First came out in 2017. Second edition came out in 2020. We got a third edition that's going to be called Endless Customers in beginning January 2025.
Yeah, I originally read it in 2018, so right when it had come out. And what really struck me was the big five.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, to your point, they sit at their table, they're like, there's a million questions swirling, and it's like, document them here. But I think that gives a good framework. Can you share what those five are and kind of how they should
Yeah.
use those?
So what I found as I was looking at the data of the content I was producing, and I've seen this now hundreds and hundreds of times with industries all over the world, is just basically five things that buyers want to know before they reach out to you. And today we know that the average buyer is about 80% through their buyer's journey before they reach out to a contractor or to a company, whomever it is. They've done a lot of research, they've done a lot of legwork, and many listening to this right now are like, yeah, they're oftentimes they're more informed, for better or for worse, than they've ever been, right? And
Yeah.
so there's five subjects that they research more than anything else, and here they are. Number one is, as buyers, consumers, we're obsessed with cost and price. We want to understand, how much is it, what drives costs up, what drives costs down, etc. But budget. That's number one, price. Number two is problems. Now, problems, what that is, though, is actually fears, worries, concerns. So whenever anybody is like looking at a pool, let's say, there's a lot of fears and worries that they might have. With a fiberglass pool, they might be saying, is it ugly? Or does it pop out of the ground? Or does it crack? Those are all fears. And so fears is number two. Number three is comparisons. We love to compare stuff online. You've probably, if you're listening to this, you've compared hundreds of things online over the years. But the thing is, when you compare things, we want both sides of the coin. We don't want to just have biased, like why you shouldn't or why you should buy this and not buy that. We want to know both sides of the coin. And then as buyers, consumers, we want to choose. Number 4 is reviews. With reviews, though, we want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And number 5 of the big 5 is best, most, top. We love searching best plus a phrase online, right?
Right.
And so cost, problems, comparisons, reviews, and best. So those are big 5. They run the economy. They literally do. They run the economy of search, the way people use the internet. Most businesses, though, don't want to talk about these 5 things on their website. So if you're listening to this right now, you need to ask yourself, well, how much content do I have about those 5 things? If you sell 5 different products or services, Phil, you should have a cost article, a cost video on each one of the 5 that explains what drives cost up, what drives cost down, etc. Now, people all the time, and you might have asked this anyway, but I'm just going to jump into it.
No,
People
I know.
always say, I can't talk about cost and price. Don't
Yeah.
lie to yourself. Yes, you can. Now, you can't give necessarily an exact price, but you can give a price. Okay. And so when you produce a piece of cost content, again, video or article, and you should do both on your website, here's the 5 things that you want to address. Number 1, what drives cost up for that thing? So let's say, this could be, pick a service that a lot of your listeners are, Phil. Just pick
Like
one for me.
lawn care.
All right, lawn care. So you might say, okay, there's a lot of factors that are going to dictate the price that you would spend on lawn care. Number 1 factor is size of lawn, right? Number 2 factor, might be how often it gets cut. Number 3 might be like what type of, what type of detail do you want? Do you just want to cut? Do you want to, weed it as well? Just like you just go down the list. So these are all factors. That's number 1. What factors drive costs up? Number 2, what factors drive costs down? So you want to explain, hey, so, another one in the lawn care industry is when the cost of fuel goes down, we, sometimes like potentially that could cause the price to go down or up, right? Or up. It doesn't seem to go down anymore, but it only tends to go up these days, right? So sometimes there's like some type of, fuel stipend or something like that. So these are all factors. So number 1 and 2, what drives cost up? What drives cost down? Number 3, why are some companies expensive? Why are some companies And number 4, why are some companies cheap? Now, sometimes people confuse this, but this is when you can get granular. So you might say one reason why some companies are more expensive is they have better equipment. That equipment allows you to cut the lawn in a particular way that other contractors just can't do. All right. Another example of this is some contractors do and some contractors do not have insurance. Some contractors do and do not have let's say equipment or licenses or any of these things that affect the overhead of a business. So this is when you're teaching the prospect the customer value in the marketplace so that they're not uninformed. And then finally, number 5, you can talk about where you are. So you can give a range for that. Okay.
Yeah.
So what drives costs up? What drives costs down? Why are some companies so expensive? Why are some companies so cheap? And then finally, where do you fall? Those are the things you should do, but you don't have to put your exact price, but you need to address it because otherwise you're just going to annoy people. They're going to leave and they're going to find someone else that's willing to address the question.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think if you take that framework, one of the big areas of opportunity that people always say, okay, great, I get traffic to my site, but how did I convert them into a lead? And you talk about an estimate calculator on your website of converting people to a lead. Is that kind of what you're...
This is a huge thing. This is a mega trend, folks. So as you listen to this right now, you need to just like accept right now, okay, within home improvement, within services space, within the next 3 to 5 years, I can almost guarantee you that everyone, Phil, is going to have some type of pricing calculator, i.e. estimator, on their website. They're going to have it. Yep. Now, what's really, really cool is I've recently developed the simplest and fastest pricing calculator that you can use with the help of AI to go on your website and start generating immediate leads from your traffic that you're already getting. And so essentially what it is I've got this tool called priceguide.ai, priceguide, one word, .ai. So if you go to priceguide.ai, you get to choose, by the way, you don't have to you don't have to give any credit card information. There's a free trial, Phil. So what I'm describing right now is like anybody
Yeah.
can put on their website for 2 weeks and literally see, is this working or is it not working? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it?
In
Right?
preparation for this interview, I checked it out. It's good. Like,
Oh, sweet. Yeah, it's
yeah,
super. And we've actually we're adding features every day, like images and stuff. But what's so cool about it is that you can select your industry and then AI will say, okay, so within that industry, there's sub-industries or sub-services. Which one of these services do you do? And then you can choose which services. And then it's going to say, okay, so if you're trying to give pricing, here's probably the questions you need to ask a homeowner. And so it's going to give you AI, pop, 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 pop. It's going to populate it for you. And then you can modify it. You can adjust it. You can adjust the questions. You can add questions, take away questions, have your own questions. You can customize it and give choices. It's all types of stuff you can do, but you put in your numbers, your ranges. And so after they answer a series of questions, and it's usually like 7 to 10, I wouldn't really recommend that much more. Now all of a sudden you can give them a range, right? And the person's like, oh, that's so helpful.
that's
And
great.
you've captured the lead, which is a big
Exactly.
part of this, Phil, right? It's because you got to get the dang lead and you need to
Yeah.
build your database.
Yep.
And a great way to do it is with calculator, because your competitors as a whole are not doing pricing
Right.
calculators. And so the cool thing about this tool, it's $19 a month, which is just stupid cheap. And it's like the average person that doesn't get a lot of traffic to the website gets 1 lead a day from it.
Yep.
Think about that. That's 365 leads a year additional that you would get by spending $19 a month. Yeah, it's $220 a year. That's stupid, right?
Yep. Yep.
And that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, I completely agree. We run conversion rate optimization on websites, and we usually see like, you should be getting around 10% conversion rates from traffic to leads. When you add an estimate calculator, it's usually 5 or 6% of the leads will convert into an estimate
It's
calculator.
crazy.
It's crazy, and
It's
the
crazy.
traffic you're already getting to your site, it's
Yeah.
just converting it better.
And it costs you nothing. You got a lot of people. It's amazing to me, Phil, how many people in home improvement are still doing traditional advertising, man. And like saying, yeah, I'm going to spend 50,000, 100,000 this year on like TV or print or
Mhm.
this or that. I'm
Right,
just
right.
like, man, what world are you living in, bro?
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah,
Get with it. There is a better way. And I know you teach us as well at Flash, right? And
yeah,
this is why people like you, me, we're trying to get the blue collar space into the present day and age so that
yeah,
you can have a really successful, scalable, viable business, experience financial peace. That's a beautiful thing. But you can't do things like everybody else. I always say 4 things. You want to set yourself apart and you want to become the voice of trust. You got to talk about what others in your space are not willing to talk about online. Number 2, you got to show what others in your space are not willing to show. Number 3, you got to be willing to sell in a way that others aren't willing to sell, i.e. pricing calculator. That's an example
mhm,
of selling very, very differently and showing something that's very different, talking about something that's very different. And then finally, number 4, you want to be more human than anybody else in your space in that process, right? In the age of AI and technology, you want to humanize your sales process and make them feel like, yeah, there's a real person behind this machine, behind this laptop that I'm looking at right now. And if you do that, you're going to become the voice of trust and the most known voice in your market. And that's what you want to be. If you're listening to this right now, you want to become the most known voice in your market, because if you can become that voice, you have leverage. If you have leverage, that means you have margin. If you have margin, it means you have a financially successful business.
yeah. I want to dive into that humanization part of it because obviously AI ChatGPT, we could take these big five, plug them into ChatGPT, get 100 articles out of it. How do you bridge the gap between stepping in and maybe getting the rough outline from ChatGPT and then putting your spin on it and then making it so that it does feel like, okay, this is not just regurgitated content because anyone could make that stuff, right?
Anybody could. What's interesting is most still don't.
Yeah, of
So
course.
in other words, every business in the world right now could in the next 30 seconds pop out a really probably pretty decent pricing article for their industry that explains what drives costs up, down, left, right. They still don't do it
Yeah.
because they're not thinking like a buyer and they don't have the courage to do it. Um, and so that's the first thing that everybody must understand. Uh, Second thing to understand is you can actually use AI to become more, not less human. You just can't be lazy in the way that you prompt and use
Mm.
AI. And a lot of people are lazy with it. And they're like, I want you to write a blog article, 800 words, about how much does an average lawn care service cost, right? No, that's laziness. Don't do
Yeah.
that, right? First of all, you have to understand what are the human signals that we pick up on when we're watching someone or something. They don't write perfect. Every paragraph isn't the same length, right? There's certain words that are just different that we use. So when people look at my stuff on LinkedIn, for example, they're like, man, it's raw. It's very human. It's very real. And you should come across that way too. Now, what you're going to see with AI is that each one of these platforms is going to continue to one up each other in terms of their skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we first started AI a couple years ago, November 2022, ChatGPT was definitely the best tool, the best writing tool. What's happening is different tools are taking the lead in different areas, and they're just leapfrogging each other with different updates. Today, at the time of this recording, Claude 3.5 Sonnet is a much better writing tool than ChatGPT if you're looking to produce content on your website. So Claude 3.5. So you'll see this if you use it. But once again, you need to prompt it the right way. You want to say things like, you know, very lengths of sentences. You want to say, hey, I want you to write this from our perspective. The name of our company is such and such. The town that we're located in is such and such. I want you to reference maybe, geographical elements with the content. I want you to come across like we're speaking to the person in a coffee shop, just sitting down in a very relaxed mode, right? It's like these are all things that say this person's real, this person's human. You should also add a personal or customer experience to every single piece of content you produce, because that's the great divide in a lot of ways. AI is not going to make stories for you. Now, it can do that, by the way. You just got to prompt it the right way. But I would suggest if you can put your own dang stories in there, do that. So this is all stuff that is going to make the person say, wow, he gets me. He understands me. This person, they just are in tune with my needs. I do highly recommend that you use AI, but you got to get the sandbox. This isn't going away. There's going to be a lot of people in this industry in home improvement. They're going to be bypassed by competitors because they're using AI better than than everybody else in their space. It's going to make you more efficient. It's going to make you smarter, but it needs to make you more human. That's your job.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned before was that you should have a piece of content and also video with the content as well. Is that something that you would pair once you get the blog post?
Always,
Yeah.
yeah, always pair it. And at this point, video is what works on social for the most part across the board, right? So we want to have much
Yeah.
video, especially long form, excuse me, uh, vertical style, short form
Mhm.
video is whether it's your reels on Facebook, Instagram, whether it's TikTok, which I think every contractor should be doing, YouTube Shorts. Every single contractor should be doing before and after of jobs. You should get creative with these vertical videos. This point today, you've got in your hand a better camera than anybody in Hollywood had 20 years ago. It's absolutely astonishing where
Yeah.
we are. You have to see yourself though more as a media company than as let's say a lawn care company or as a home improvement company. It's a hard thing for people to swallow, Phil. It's like, my life really changed when I said we're a media company that sells pools,
Mm.
because that's really how I viewed everything. It's like I
Yeah.
got a videographer, I got a content writer. It's like boom, we got really, really serious, like a media company. Now somebody might say, "Well, I'm a one-man gang, I'm a two-man gang." It's like there's no way I can do that. Yeah, 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 you can do that because there's people doing your industry all the time by themselves. I mean, if you're in lawn care, let's say, I mean, if you're not constantly showing different photos, different images, different videos, different cool little before and afters, just fun little stuff, right? Just, how you sharpen your blades and what equipment you use and why you use it.
Yeah.
And how you weed eat and just little fun little things, man. It's like there's a story. The problem is a lot of people, especially in home improvement, they take what they do for granted and they don't realize there's a cool story behind it. Everything you do in business is a story.
I agree. And I think the smaller you are, the even more advantage you are because you're boots on the ground. Like you're right there doing all the stuff. There's no excuse not to pull out your phone. When you're bigger, you blame your technicians for not getting you the stuff and that whole thing. So I completely agree. One of the things that I think, because you mentioned YouTube and TikTok, and I know people are saying, well, what should I do, Marcus? Which one should I do? And I think I've heard you say it's principles, not platforms. And it's about
Yeah.
being a media company and having that mindset of that I'm going to be educating people, not worried about, oh, TikTok's taking off over here. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, so it's always principles, because platforms will come and go, but principles do not change, right? So
Yes.
it's like, if I said to anybody's listening to this, is trust fundamental to your business? You're like, oh, absolutely. Will it be fundamental in 20 years? Absolutely. Well, to TikTok, it's probably not going to be here in 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So this is what the internet has taught us. So you got to be principle driven. Now, in terms of how to take advantage of these platforms and whatnot, you got to think efficiently. You take, for example, short form video, this vertical video. You can post the same video on 5 different platforms if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Whether it's Reels, whether it's Shorts, whether it's TikTok, you can do that, and that's working. And I certainly would recommend it, but you can't allow yourself to say, well, that's not my thing. You
Right.
see, one thing I know for certain is the marketplace doesn't care about what is or is not your thing,
Yep.
right? You say, well, video's not really my thing. The marketplace doesn't care about your opinions. They don't care about mine. They just want to see what they want to see. They want to do what they want to do. They want to learn what they want to learn. Nobody's ever been on your website before and said, gosh, I'd love to see a video, but they don't have one. That's okay, though, because I'm sure they get really nervous on camera. Like, that's never happened.
No.
It's not how it works, y'all.
No.
And
No.
so when we say I'm going to be an entrepreneur, we lose the right to not be aligned with the marketplace, with what they want. We signed up to be aligned with the
Yeah.
marketplace. And
Yep.
so that's how it works. So sometimes we got to get over ourselves. I know I did. I'm sure you have, Phil. When you
Yeah.
started this podcast, you weren't like the essence of comfortable, I'm sure, but now you're crushing, right? And that's how it works.
That's right. So we talk about SEO, creating content, video content. Um, I think it all comes down to building trust with the end user, because before, you go in and you see the person, you talk with them, but now it's all online and turning into leads. What are some ways that people can build trust? I know there's like maybe some videos that you can create through your sales process. How can you make it feel more human, maybe on your website interacting? Are there any strategies for that?
There's, one of the techniques I talk about, they ask you answer, is disarmament or disarming someone. When someone knows that you're trying to sell them something, they're guarded,
Yeah.
arms crossed, right? So you have to disarm them, make them drop their weapons. How do you do this? You say something they don't expect, right? So let me give you an example, right? Let's say I started a company called Sheridans Lawn Care, right? So I might say something like, you know, people ask us all the time, why should I go with Sheridan's Lawn Care? Well, the truth is, Sheridan's Lawn Care might not be the best fit for you. In
Mm,
fact, there are times when we recommend other contractors. But for certain customers, Sheridan Lawn Care is a great fit. So in this video, I'm going to talk about who we're for, but I'm also going to talk about who we're not for. By the end, hopefully you'll have a clear sense as to whether or not we're a great fit for you. Now, think about that, Phil. How many people communicate like that online? They
yeah.
just
No,
you don't really see it. But what every consumer wants is the ability to choose and feel like they're in charge. They don't want to be force fed anything.
that's right.
And so when you disarm someone, you show both sides of the coin. You say something, you do something they don't expect. That's an easy way to generate trust. Pricing calculator or any type of self-service tool in your website. Tremendous way to generate trust. Talk about, show, sell, be more human than anybody else in your space. Tremendous way to earn more trust, right? Integrate content into your sales process. If you're going to go meet with a homeowner tomorrow, send them a video beforehand. Maybe it's a one-to-one video. One-to-one video is so easy, so powerful. Hey, Mr. Jones, going to be there tomorrow. Excited to just have that quick chat with you to be able to give you that estimate for your yard. I wanted you to know what I look like. That way, when I'm walking up your driveway, you knew exactly who I was. Person's like, wow, nobody's ever done that to me before, right? I'm very
Yeah.
impressed with that, right? I trust this person. I mean, they're entrusting you with your yard, with their home, whatever the thing is. And so find ways to give that human touch, that, differentiation. Man, I had this plumbing company come out to my house recently, and they wore booties on their shoes,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And those little cloth covers for shoes.
Yeah.
Makes an immediate impression. I also noticed that they were 3x higher than pretty much every plumber.
Yeah.
But they're acting like they're white glove service,
That's right.
and they're getting that because they have leverage, right? And that's the thing about a lot of home improvement companies. They have leverage because a lot of people won't call them back quickly. You know how it is. I mean, we see it. We see it. So if you're decent, man, you've got a leg up. If you're great, you're unstoppable. If you're great plus extraordinary, you can demand incredible margins. A lot of you could be running 50, 60% net profit margins. You just got to think differently, because if you race to the bottom, you're going to have terrible margins, low numbers, right?
Yep.
But if you're trying to be the most expensive provider in your space, that's a hell of a goal, man. That's the type of person I'm like, they get it. They
Yep.
get it.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to like being the resource, the authority in your space, building an amazing customer journey through the entire process. So that way people justify it in their minds like, yeah, of course they cost more because this whole thing that they have in a war chest of reasons why.
Yeah. People sometimes say to me, but I'm afraid they're going to see that we cost more. And I always ask the same thing. Um, is it possible that the fact that you cost more is actually a benefit and an advantage to the homeowner? They're
Exactly.
like, well, actually, I guess it could be. See, you know, I've had different lessons on this in my life. I remember one time it was probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I'd started speaking a lot. And this world-class sales trainer, Phil Jones, and I were at an event. He says to me in his perfect English accent, Marcus, how much do you charge these days? I look down for a second. I say, well, I usually charging somewhere between, around 12,500, 15,000 per event. About that. He said, when you learn to say that with authority, you can be worth way more than
Wow.
$15,000. And I
Yeah.
said, son of a gun.
Yeah.
It was so striking. I'll
Yeah.
never forget it.
The way you deliver it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it speaks volumes. There's a book, Dan Kennedy, no BS marketing to the affluent. And he talks a lot about that of like your pricing actually would help separate you and the authority that you have in how you say your pricing. People will say, wow, yeah, I'm definitely going with this one. It's more expensive. What's wrong
Yeah.
with this one that's so cheap?
Plus, if they see you look down, if they see you flinch, if they see
That's
you
right.
grit your teeth, there's all these elements
That's right.
that are like signals that tells a person you don't believe in your pricing.
Yeah.
And last thing I'll say about pricing, this is really, really interesting because people are like, Marcus, I'm just so confused about this whole pricing thing. Let me just give you the quick skinny on discussing pricing, marketing versus selling. In the marketing process, all right, when they're vetting you online, you bring up pricing early because they want to see, am I in the game? I
Mm,
just want to get a sense for this. In the sales process, when you meet with the homeowner, you bring up pricing late,
yeah.
okay? Because at that point, they already have a sense for it.
Yeah.
But it does need to crescendo to that point. And it's not a crescendo as in like a bad crescendo, but it's a very easy crescendo. And they already have a sense for it because you've already given it to them. So I'm a sales trainer and a marketing trainer. So I'm able to comfortably tell you, yes, in sales, you bring up pricing at the end.
Yeah.
In marketing, you bring it up at the beginning.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I think for a lot of people, they don't think like that. They think that pricing should be hidden and then some gotcha moment. So
Right.
yeah, I completely agree. One of the things I was really curious about that I heard on one of your other interviews was about some AI, Marcus, popping up on your website that's going to be taking all your information and distilling
Mhm.
it into something.
Oh yeah, dude, it's coming.
That's so
So
cool.
digital avatars, digital humans. There's different names that we use for them, but just imagine this, right? Imagine that you come to the Riverpool's website, let's say, and I greet you. And I'm like, hey, this is digital Marcus. It's not the real Marcus, but I'm using his brain and all the information he's ever produced to have this conversation with you right now. Now, you and I have two options right now. You can ask me any question at all about our company, about swimming pools, and I'll just be your teacher. I'll educate you, I'll help you out, and we can have a conversation that way. Or I can give you an estimate right now. So you just tell me which one you prefer. Person verbally says, I'd like to ask you some questions. Okay, go ahead and ask me some questions. Person
Wow.
says, I'd like to get a quote. Okay, let's start then. That's where
Yeah.
this is headed. And, you know, somebody watching this right now, like, man, I just don't know how that could be real. It's where we're going. y'all.
Yeah.
And which is why they ask you answer is so important, because if you haven't produced this content,
Exactly.
your AI doesn't have the ability to use the information. You haven't taught it.
That's right.
So the beauty of they ask you answer is you produce this content through all this text, all this video. That's training the AI to answer your questions, the questions you would get all the time, to make it the most like you possible. I think this is coming within the next 18 months or so. It's getting better and better. We're starting to see a lot more videos where the person's able to say the thing,
Yes.
but it doesn't quite look perfectly human yet.
Yeah.
But it's going to get there. And again, you know, we're seeing advancements in a week that we used to see in a year. It
That's
happens
right.
all the time. And you also have to be careful to, you know, you, you can't fit the future in the containers of the past. So you can't base what's going to happen with AI on what you've experienced up to this point.
Yeah.
It's not how this is going to work, y'all. It's a
Yeah.
different game. It's a different world. And so that's why you got to be prepared to move a lot faster now. I don't feel sorry for anybody, though. That's the world we're in.
That's
And so
right.
let's do it, y'all. Let's attack the thing. Let's go at it.
Yeah. And I think creating all this content, to your point, you have now all of this content that you can train AI, and it doesn't just stop with avatar on your website. Think about your CSRs. Eventually that could be an AI, something answering your question.
Correct.
Training for your technicians out in the field, asking questions on the job, training, a video. I mean, there's so many ways to utilize this, and you're basically building a library of your company and your brain.
That's exactly it, Phil. And that's the vision that everyone needs to have.
Yeah.
And which is why you got to get in the sandbox with AI, and you have to start saying to yourself, could AI do this? Could it do this 80%, 85% as well as I could do it? If the answer is yes, get on it.
Yeah.
And you can actually go to AI and ask. You can literally say, hey, I got these things, these tasks, these difficulties. How could you help me do that? It will
Yeah.
tell you. It was like, yeah, I could do that for you, or I can't do that, but it'll tell you.
Yeah. It's crazy. And so Endless Customers, what is this book about?
Yeah, this is V3 of They Ask You Answer.
Yeah.
And the buyer's changing, so the book needs to evolve with it.
Mm.
AI is now here, fully present, so I needed to produce a lot of stuff on AI.
Mm.
Plus, I've tried to framework it even better. For those that are familiar with EOS,
Yep.
um, I want it to be the EOS, the traction, if you will, of sales and marketing, to be a
Wow.
very clear system that you could follow.
That's awesome. I'm excited to read it. I love
Me
reading
too,
books.
man.
And
Thank you.
yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, Marcus, this has been great. Where should people go to get in contact with you or learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm great on LinkedIn. You certainly connect with me there. You can reach out to me, direct email Marcus at marcussheridan.com. Make sure you sign up for that calculator if you're listening to this, priceguide.ai. Start using it, start getting those leads. Um, I mean, I'm improving it on the weekly right now. It's very, very exciting. You can beat your competitors to this, and you can do it for a very low cost. But yeah, Phil, I love being on here. I love this industry. I love home improvement. I
Yeah.
love contractors, and so it's nice to be able to talk to my people.
Yeah. Likewise. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and look forward to reading the next book and staying in touch on LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right. Thanks, man.